Hi, in this video we're going to show you the free Stardesk remote desktop software that you can use to connect to remote computers over the internet and control them. Right, so it has some pretty good features. So I believe this is designed more for remote streaming and gaming because it supports 4K and high frame rates and that type of thing, which we'll show you in the settings when we get to it. All right, so to use this program, you just install it, and the first time you connect, it's going to want you to log in with your Google account. So you have to do that in order to use it. Not super thrilled with that, but that's the way it works. So the key to this is that you want to use the same Google account on both computers. Because if you use two different accounts, you will only have the option for remote assistance, not the option here where you could connect to your other computer without having to be there. All right, so I have this running on this computer here, and here's the desktop of the remote computer. So let's go over to that one real quick and take a look at it. All right, so we have this running on the remote computer as well. Exact same configuration. All right, so let's go back over to the other one and try it out. Okay, so let's go over the two sections here. So if I go to all devices, so here's the one we're on now, and here's the one we're just looking at, the Pro. So you could delete it from here, or if you do that, it'll take you right back to it. So as you add devices, and they're online, you'll see them in this list here. All right, so we have the option here just to do a remote desktop connection there. Obviously not using the remote desktop protocol, but the same idea. Then we have file transfer, and then more, which we'll see in a second here as well. So the file transfer can only be used if you're using the same Google account on both computers, because you cannot use it in the remote assistance. So the remote assistance feature works just like TeamViewer and a lot of the other ones, where the person on the other end will give you the ID and code or password, and then you'll put it in here, and then you could connect to it and control their computer. So like I said, you could use this when using the same Google account or two different Google accounts. But if you're using two different Google accounts, you will not have this option here to connect to your other computer without being there. All right, so let's try out a connection real quick. So we're just going to click on Connect Desktop. All right, so now you can see we're on the other computer, and then we can control it like we're sitting in front of it. Then you have this little statistics section over here if you want to see information about the connection. All right, then you also have connection time up here. And if you click on this here, you have a new virtual screen. So this kind of works as a virtual desktop in Windows, where you could have kind of like a separate desktop here. So let's minimize this. So you can see here we don't have this new folder that I made before on this screen. So let me delete this. Let's do a new text file, for example. I'll do a new zip file since I don't have text file for some reason. All right, so there's a new zip file. And if I go back here, you can see it's not over on the screen. But when you close out the remote connection, you will find that any files and folders you've made on the virtual screen here will automatically go over to the other computer. So let's go back to the other computer and make sure this file is not here. All right, so we're back on the computer that we're controlling remotely, and you can see we don't have that zip file here. All right, back over to the other one. And then when you're done with the virtual screen, you could close it here, or you could right-click on it and remove it. So if you close it, it'll open up next time you make the connection unless you actually remove it. All right, then if we go to Control Center here, you see we have some options for monitor 1, for scale and resolution. So this is the resolution I'm recording at, so that's why it looks kind of poor right now. Image quality, you could change it from auto to one of these other settings, change the frames per second, the color. Window options here, adaptive or actual size. Sound, volume, security options here, so if you want to lock the remote device after you disconnect. This feature is kind of nice if you want to black out their screen while you're working on the computer so they can't see what you're doing. And then same for the sound. And we have this mouse option here for mouse mode, most likely used for gaming purposes. And then we could do the file transfer from here as well. So let's try that out real quick. All right, so here is the computer we're on, and then this is the remote computer that we're controlling. So let's say I wanted to copy this PDF over there. Just select the one I want, browse to the location on the remote computer. it's not going to be the desktop by default, so you'll see when we check out the settings what folder we'll put it in by default. Click on Send. So that's been sent. And now you can see it popped over here on the remote computer. And then you also get a notification down here as well. You could open the folder and so on. Okay, so now let's disconnect from here and check out some of the other options. All right, so one thing that's kind of cool, if you want to do the file transfer without connecting to the remote computer itself, you can just click on File Transfer. Let's say we put this one, for example. Now that sent it over to the remote computer, and we didn't even have to start the remote session here. And then under More here, you could restart the device, rename it, or remove it if you want. All right, so this quick launch is kind of interesting. So if you click on Add, it'll look on the other computer for apps that you could use to launch from this section here. I don't know why it doesn't show all the apps, even if I search for apps. So if I search for Paint, for example, it doesn't find it. I know 7-zip is over there. It doesn't find it. So I'm not sure what determines what apps you could use for this. But anyways, let's just add Chrome, for example, here. So now that's in the list. So now if we click on Chrome here from our quick launch, it'll make a connection and then actually open Chrome itself. So not sure how helpful that is, but I guess it's a nice feature here. And you can see we have the files here that we transferred over. And so you can see it opens the virtual screen as well. So I'm going to remove this virtual screen. And now you can see that zip file went over to the main screen because we removed that virtual screen. All right, let's close it out again here. All right, so let's check out the settings here real quick. So you can have it start with Windows. So when you install it and run it the first time, you'll have the option to have it automatically start with Windows. So if you're going to be doing unattended access, then you're probably going to want to have it start with Windows. And then there's this option for remote boot, but you'll have to test to see if it works with your computer. Then keep computer awake. So here's the path for transferred files. So you could change that if you want. And then what to do when you close the window. And then if you realize you don't like it and you want to delete the account and unlink your Google account, you could do that from here. All right, then up here we just have About, your account information, and Refresh. And then of course here you see your devices. All right, so it has some pretty nice features. So since it's still kind of in a beta mode, they might add some new features later. So depending on when you're watching this video, you might see something a little bit different. And then of course, if you see this option here, you could come here and disconnect all the sessions. And then you could also come here, manage your apps if you want to remove anything that you've added. All right, so I will put a link in the description where you could download Stardesk and then you can see how it works for you. All right, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe.